Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode. Welcome to the very first episode of the Public Health Entrepreneurs Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to explore topics of interest for professionals at the intersection of public health and entrepreneurship. My name is Dr. Charlotte Huntley, and I'll be your host. I'm a public health entrepreneur with well over 20 years of experience in healthcare and public health, supporting many other entrepreneurs along the way. While this podcast is new, I've been a podcaster for quite a while, since 2017, and I'm excited to bring this podcast to you. We'll explore topics around getting started, finding clients, leads and marketing, offers and sales, as well as systems and productivity to help you strengthen your confidence and grow the business of your dreams. Whether you are just getting started or you've been in business for a while, you'll find helpful tips and strategies that are on the episodes that we'll be publishing out every single week. Follow or subscribe to the podcast right now in the app that you're listening so that you won't miss any of the new episodes. Now, there are so many topics that we could dive into, but there's no better place to start than with answering this question. What is a public health entrepreneur? Well, it's a great question, and I receive this often. So let's dive into it. A public health entrepreneur is an individual who identifies opportunities to address public health challenges through innovative and creative approaches to develop, scale, and sustain initiatives that have a positive impact on population health. Now, please note, develop, scale, and sustain are important parts of this journey as an entrepreneur, and our ability to actually have a positive impact on population health long term. We'll talk more about that in upcoming episodes. Now, there are three things I'd like for you to remember when you're thinking about what it means to be a public health entrepreneur. The first thing is that there are no one size fits all. I wish it was that easy, but it's not. Public health is broad, entrepreneurship is broad, and together they look many different ways. We will occasionally have guests on this podcast to discuss their business and help provide some examples for inspiration and provide you with some real life examples of what's possible as a public health entrepreneur. The next thing I'd like you to think about or remember when you're considering what it means to be a public health entrepreneur is that public health entrepreneurs really could be considered an umbrella term. There are many examples of entrepreneurship that fall under this umbrella. So, for example, you could be an author and write books. You could be another type of writer. You could be a technical writer or write newsletters or blogs. All of that's under this communication of public health that's so important. You could be a speaker or a podcaster. You could be a course creator or coach. You could be a workshop facilitator, consultant, which is really popular. Everyone's familiar with that. Being a consultant, you could be doing whole or part of a project work for organizations. We'll talk more about that later. Other examples include creating a startup, like in the information technology with app development, or in an area of life sciences or biomedical sciences. The third thing I want you to remember when you think about what it means to be a public health entrepreneur is that the journey of a public health entrepreneur is one of exploration. It often starts with an inspiring idea, the desire to improve something that exists but is lacking in some way, or create something that's needed but doesn't exist at all. You are the one with the inspiration. You are the one with the passion and drive to create and to serve. And you are on the path of exploring this inspiration, setting the rules and the pace, and seeing it through. Now, that can feel scary and exciting at the same time, and that is okay. Now, let's quickly recap. A public health entrepreneur is an individual who identifies opportunities to address public health challenges through innovative and creative approaches to develop, scale, and sustain initiatives that have a positive population health impact. Now, there are three things to remember when you're thinking about what it means to be a public health entrepreneur. The first thing is there are no one size fits all. The second thing is think about public health entrepreneurs as an umbrella term. And the third thing is the journey of public health entrepreneur is one of exploration. I invite you to join me in the next episode of the Public Health Entrepreneurs podcast as I dive more deeply into what it means to be a public health consultant, which is another topic that I'm often asked about. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. You're now part of the family of the Public Health Entrepreneurs podcast. I'd like to ask one more thing before we wrap up. Will you help us spread the word about this podcast? There are a few easy ways that you can do that. You can share this podcast with your network and help us grow by sharing, using the sharing buttons in the podcast app that you're listening in right now. Another way is to share our website, publichealthentrepreneurs.com. And finally, you can share it by leaving us a favorable review in Apple Podcasts or rating it in one of the other podcast apps that you may be using. Whichever option you choose, thank you for helping us spread the word about this podcast. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day.